Continuing with our interface example code, we now have our interface iPayable all set up, and we're ready to hook our classes up to this interface. So going to the employee class, when we want to denote that a class inherits from an interface, we use the same syntax that we used when we denoted that a derived class was inheriting from a base class. So we're going to say :iPayable. And one thing that we need to ensure, since these are imported classes, is that our namespace matches for all of them. So I need to make sure that interface example is the namespace for all of the classes in my program. So my employee class now implements iPayable. I'm going to do the same thing for my invoice class. And now when we build, we'll suddenly get an error. One, because this abstract can't be here if we're implementing an iPayable or implementing any interface. But you'll also see an error because we imported this base class employee, but we didn't implement the derived class for the run payroll method. So I'm just going to go ahead and comment this out for the sake of our demonstration. So now the only two errors that you should have come directly from that interface, and they're because we talked about interfaces being a contract. So the interface declared that every class that implements it must contain a method that returns a decimal named getPaymentAmount. And if that contract's not being fulfilled, then it's going to create an error in the compiler. So each class is going to have to implement this method. Now right now this class, because we only used it for demonstration purposes, does not hold any information about payment or salary. So I'm going to go ahead and set up an auto-implemented property for the salary so that we have something to return in our method that needs to return a decimal. So I'm going to add it to the constructor and set it so that we'll have something in this public property. So I'm creating the getPaymentAmount method. It has to return a decimal data type, and so I'm going to return the salary property. Over in the invoice class, we already have a method named getInvoiceAmount. So it's already taking the quantity times the price. So I'm going to change this to getPaymentAmount so that it will fulfill the needs of our interface. And so once you have both of these methods set up, public decimal getPaymentAmount, which multiplies quantity by price in invoice, and public decimal getPaymentAmount that returns the salary of the employee in the employee class, your project should now build without errors because it is fulfilling the needs and requirements of the interface that you've said that you are implementing up here in the class declaration. Before we move on, just a few notes about what can go on inside of an interface. So inside of an interface, we can create our method declarations. However, methods cannot be explicitly declared public or abstract inside of an interface. Interfaces can have any number of members, and interface methods can have parameters. So now that you understand some of the basics of creating and implementing an interface with your classes, in the next video we will look at how to use the interface in polymorphic behavior to create instances of both employee and invoice and then run our getPaymentAmount method.